Bam. Oh, yeah. That's great. I love how clear the picture is. That genuinely makes me happy. All right. And here we are for the Dualistic Unity call-in show. I'm not sure which number we're on. I think it might be 5. I think we're at 5, something like that. Could be 4, could be 6. Who cares? You know, because whoever's listening to this, you may have listened to it in any order. Perhaps you came from a community topics episode. Perhaps you were listening to season 2, episode 6. Who knows? And you just jumped here. So it could be your first call-in show, or this could be a repeat. And at this point, you're wondering, where are you going with this, Ray? Exactly what is the point of this little rant? And I want to tell you right now, the point is that there is none. I am quite literally just dwelling on one of the possible thoughts that I could be having right now. Because there's nothing wrong with fucking doing so. See, in a conversation, you can just be yourself. You really can. You can just be yourself. And anybody who's going to look at you and go, what kind of nonsense is this? Like, why are we being more productive? That person's dealing with some shit. Like, that person is not feeling well about how they are going through their life. That is all they are telling you. They are afraid to just talk. They're afraid to just express what they are. You know, and so they're telling you you can't do it. They're not deliberately telling you that you can't do it. They're doing it because they tell themselves that all the time in little ways. And so I figured I would just open this up by saying, you know, I don't plan what I'm going to talk about. There's a lot of stuff. Like right now, I could pick any conversation. I could go through my head and go, let's talk about pyramids. Let's talk about the government. Let's talk about psychology. We could talk about philosophy. We could talk about the person we ran into in Nanaimo today. We could talk about wildlife. We could talk about, you know, the garbage problem. We could talk about religion. We could talk about the schooling system. We could talk about anything. We can go in any direction we want. I can talk about the itch underneath my foot. You know, I could talk about what it's like to be a bald man. You know, I could talk about anything. And yet somehow I think one of those things is the correct thing. Rather than just allowing myself to be who I am and recognizing that anybody's problem with that, it really comes from the problem with being who they are. You know, and that's the whole point. There's no right way to be. And anybody who is going to have conflict with you is having a conflict with themselves if you are really just being yourself, because there's no animosity in that. See, that's the point. Like, in being okay with being myself, if you judge me, I'm not going to get defensive about it. You're like, that's ridiculous. I'm going to go, do you think so? You know, like, really? All right. Why? Where would you like to go with this? And that's it. It's just because I have no need to defend myself. They're coming for me. Anyway, the point being is that I'm just talking to myself. See, even that, he's right there. It's like, that was an ambulance, Ray. Nobody's coming for you. You're not dying. That joke didn't even fly. Do I care? No. That's why I'm talking about how much it didn't fly, right? Because why not? What is there to defend? Oh my God, I'm not saying the most groundbreaking, profound shit for 5 minutes of this hour and 45-minute broadcast. I am not a performing monkey. You know, I'm not here, you know, with prepared notes of what is best for everybody, because think about how much stress goes with that. I don't know what's best for you, but I know what it's like to not have an issue with being yourself. And maybe that's what you'd like, in which case the best way for me to get that across is just to ramble for a bit and not care what you think.
And being able to just take things in any direction, like that's for so long has felt overwhelming to me because I haven't had, you know, that sense of faith in myself, you know, that sense that, oh, I can just take this in any direction. Because that's a component of how I always talked, is like having nothing to say. And it's like, that's something to say right there. Like, I have this sense that I don't have anything to say, despite, you know, looking around in the immediacy, you know, I see a bed and how it reminds me of that month I spent sleeping on the floor. And it actually felt a lot better waking up. So if anyone hasn't slept on the floor, give it a shot.
Well, floor sleeping is a good thing.
Yeah, get a decent carpet, and it's not going to be too bad. You get used to it pretty quick, and it's it's enjoyable to do so. And then as I, get through that topic, there's this sense of like, oh, well, is there something to say next? What is that? What is the next thing that I'm going to say? Do I have to say something next? Like, no, I actually don't. There actually isn't anything that needs to come across in any specific way whatsoever.
Oh,
Ever. Like, who is it for? Like, who am I convincing of anything as I speak, as I express myself? Am I trying to convince people that I am something that I want them to think that I am? Because that'll get me to stumble a bit if I'm trying to maintain some right thing, correct thing to say or express. But if I don't have that, then there's options on the table. And who am I trying to impress anyway?
well, me, obviously. The point being that actually, although we have nothing to say, we are spending time here for the sake of just hanging out, shooting the breeze. And if you would like to call in and say what you have to say, this is the perfect time. This is a call-in show after all. So you can join us by going to dualisticunity.com/live. And that will take you to a form where you will fill in a little bit of information about yourself. And I don't think anybody has filled that in as yet. So if you would like to do that, please do. Give us a call, and you can join us for up to 10 minutes here on the screen, which is always a lot of fun. Oh, what was that? No, not quite yet. All right, perfect. That's just summarizing our previous stream. But it's a call-in show, which means we'll answer questions or allow you to vent, share, celebrate. Possibly. Celebrate's a good place to start. I always enjoy celebrating a day just because I'm not dead. So things are still going. The story develops, as it were. Man, there's so many times though. It's just so funny. Like I said, hell to me is just settling on a feeling and going, it's always going to feel like this. And there's been so many times where you're just like, I'm panicking, I'm stressed out, my life seems like a piece of shit. It's always gonna be like this. And that's really when, you get buried in it, as opposed to just going, yeah, but I could be hungry and overtired. Like maybe there's just a few things that are contributing to this. And if I just let those go, maybe this feeling will pass and I'll have a different perspective of my life. But we really get to this point where like, this sucks, and it sucks so bad that it's all I can see. And because it's all I can see, it's all that there is. And that's the rest of my life. And oh my God, does that ever suck so much worse? And then we just go through the same goddamn cycle again and again and again, burying ourselves in this idea that how badly I feel now is how badly I'm always gonna feel. Oh my God, that's worse. How badly I feel now is how badly I'm always gonna. Oh my God, that's so much worse. How badly I feel now and it's just like, oh, the darkness creeps in. Like it's just like Jesus Christ, and that's it. It's just this habit, and it's just, oh, okay, I feel shitty, but it's gonna pass. That's why things like, this too shall pass. It's meant to have like that lesson of like, don't get too involved. Like the story that you told, maybe, that story is all about, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that's what that is. And it's funny because you look back and you're like, I told that story in a different mentality at the time, but you were still looking at the same insight from the place that you could. Right? But the insight is just, I have no idea. I'm gonna keep going. And that's it. That's because there's 1,000 things that happened after that horse story. It wasn't just that it ended on the son not getting conscripted. There was more. Like the rest of that dude's life was a whole question mark of maybes.
Yeah, the whole time. And that's all, that's all my life is ever, is that question mark. And so what do you do with a question mark? You make the most of it because you're there, and being able to just have opportunities, where you can grow and recognize just the importance of growth too, like doing things that are new and different. It's like exciting because that informs my experience. And when I really sit down and think about like, what do I want with my life? It's like experience a bunch of stuff, like a lot of different things. And that's exciting. But yeah, it doesn't mean that it doesn't come with, discomfort. It's like discomfort and growth go hand in hand. which yeah, which helps remember for sure. So,
It's funny, you know, that idea of like what I want has changed so much over time. You know, like when I picture something like I want, it's the ability to like, I don't know, sit somewhere and just not feel bored. You know, to not feel like I should be doing something else. And no matter what it is, like no matter what it is, to just be there for it. You know, and what the funny part about that is in order to get that, you gotta stop wanting it.
mhm,
Because otherwise you're projecting,
mhm,
right? But
yeah.
that's it at the end of the day. So it's like, do you want it enough to let it go? Do you want to enjoy your life enough to let go of the fictional one in your head? Because that's what's keeping you from it.
Mhm.
That's fucking,
Yeah,
that's fucked.
all the time. Yeah, because then if it's not keeping you from, it's like this idea that, oh, I have to get to another spot in order to, let that go. It's like you can only do it right now. You can only relax right now. You can only pay attention right now. You can only be involved in what you're doing right now. And that's where that influence sits, is the moment that you're on right now, which is super exciting because then you're being informed by what's actually happening and all those considerations instead of my idea of what should be happening or the right thing to be happening. It's like I'm happening right now. And so am I going to be here for it? Or am I going to be, focused on something else as I go?
Exactly.
Mm.
Yeah. And how much are you getting out of it if you're not focused on it happening? Right?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Hmm.
We have somebody in the waiting room and they would like to talk about things being temporary.
Sounds like a beautiful subject.
Hello, Marie.
Hello, hello.
How you doing?
Doing it. How are
Yeah.
you?
Ah, we're here seeing what happens next.
Exactly. Oh my God. It resonated so much when I think things were brought up about that temporary. I was gonna say like temporariness. It's like a horrible word. I hope it's not a word. But just that I feel like the more things I've been experiencing, or I guess the more I've just been shifting my perspective of, remaining more present, I recognize like how much everything is so temporary. Like it makes me laugh every time like I'll leave for a trip, let's say, and I might build it up a little bit in my mind of like that experience being there somewhere different, not being home, blah blah blah. But then I always have that like, but you're gonna be like right back in your apartment before you know it. Like it's gonna happen so fast that it's like I don't know. And so like the more I've been doing that, I'll come back home from somewhere and I'll like giggle, like even work for the day, like I'll be wake up like, oh fuck, to get up and go do a day of work and be out there and then I'm right back home though. And then I'll laugh. I'm like smoking a joint and I'm like, I'm home again. Here I go. And so I guess it makes me like um I don't know, it makes me giggle for sure. And it makes me appreciate experiences more, even like the shitty ones or the ones that feel really heavy, because even those moments, I'm like, remember when you were going through that shitty thing like a year ago, or something will pop up that'll remind you, and it's like, and you thought like that was the end of everything, and like you'll never come back from that experience, and then here you are, and then it's just like so funny, which is why like I find myself not taking anything seriously, like whether it be something that everyone's like, no, you have to take this seriously, it's like no, yeah, I don't, because like what the fuck is what is happening here, like I don't know, it's just that temporary aspect has like gotten me through everything and has shifted my perspective of going through each experience, for sure. Uh, so yeah, just wanted to jump in and talk about that.
I appreciate that, the lightness of that, right? Because again, it's like I'm taking it seriously because I'm afraid. It's really the only reason I'm taking it so seriously. It needs to be this. It needs to be this so I can feel like I'm in control. But aside from that, I don't know. I don't know, let's find out. Like that's pretty much it. And it's just because you're not taking yourself so seriously, at the end of the day. But there's just so much lightness. And what's funny is it's not just that you're light, because people would be like, oh, well, that sounds like a super irresponsible way to live your life. It's like, no, your self-efficacy goes through the roof, because all of a sudden you're not focused on stupid shit. Like you're not distracted. You're actually like, there's a good portion of you in what you're doing now, as opposed to in what you're doing and trying to define yourself and trying to feel in control and worrying about shit that's not there, right? So it's just amazing that there is such a like a visible benefit to relaxing and not taking it so seriously, but it just seems so contradictory to our mentalities. Like it couldn't be. It couldn't be. You couldn't possibly be doing the right thing just by being you. It's got to be something that you can control. You got to think about it, and you can fuck it up.
Yeah, because when it's temporary, then you're temporary too.
Yeah.
And then it's like it kind of goes hand in hand with just the willingness to take things as they come and not need to judge yourself. It's like recognizing both as you go through the situation, like you continue to shift and change as things continue to shift and change. And it's like you're always matching your environment in that sense. But there's a lightness in being able to bounce just moment to moment to moment.
Yeah, exactly. I just feel like I like that last part of you just saying of like our experience itself is temporary as Marie. And so that's why I try not to even get caught up in Marie's story too much. Like I think Ray, you said it's like a good book. It for sure is. Like it's a great book. I've been enjoying this book thoroughly, but it isn't the entirety of me, because when I get caught up in just Marie's story, I get caught up in such a small fragment of what I like could be, and it's like don't get too caught up in that, because there's like this whole picture here you're not looking at. And it's been more fun to just take a look at the whole picture, because then things just naturally occur, and because like it's the picture unfolding, I guess. I don't know, uh, it feels like so much better than getting wrapped up in Marie's shit. Like it's like so much better. Like I think I've been able to, like, I guess, chill her out a bit when I haven't been getting in the way. I feel like we say the same things, but it makes me laugh even harder when I like recognize it more. Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
fucking funny.
because it continues to be just like one perspective of things. Like, the story is just like one sort of pathway that you've been focused on, but you've kind of maintained that. And so it's like there's so many perspectives that I could have of a situation. I don't have to maintain that one, you know, and then everything kind of opens up. You don't feel as limited to like the way you've always acted either. You can continue to be that, playing out of just what is reality. It helps not take yourself so seriously as you do that.
But then I don't know, Andrew.
Mm.
All right. Like if I can't take it seriously, I can't settle on something. It's super unsatisfying. Like in that way that you're like, aha, I've solved it. I've come to that end point. I am so much smarter for doing so. Like there's none of that. There's none of that at all. You don't get to go home at the end of the day and go, I lived right. You don't, it's just like there's none of that. You're just like, and I'll wake up tomorrow and we'll see what happens then. But there's none of that how it reflects on you. And that's why so many people avoid it at the end of the day, because you can't feel better about yourself for just living your life. You can just feel better about living your life. Like you can't feel better about yourself for doing so, because that takes away from it. But you can feel better as you're doing so, which is fucking hilarious.
Oh my God, I feel like just like holding on to this false certainty is just so much more exhausting, but it is like easy. It's like easy to get sucked into that for sure. Um, but I don't really want to do it anymore. I think, you know what I mean? And I don't want to do it, but I want to recognize or be aware, just, um, I don't know. I don't even like know.
I'm just not buying the con anymore. That's really what it is. It always, every one of these false certainties always promised to make me feel better. It's just like, now you're going to be okay. And then they just get threatened by something else. Right. And so it's just like, I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. I don't buy the snake oil salesman in my head that's like, this will cure all your ills. I'm just, nah, I've bought enough of that shit. I don't think that's the case. I'm going to sit here getting stronger. How about that? And that's pretty much it. But it's
Yeah.
just over time. This is why I've said before and previously in the podcast, like, there is no way except to just run at the wall so many times until you're just like, it's fucking pointless.
Mhm.
Like, this isn't actually doing anything for me. And then you just stop doing it because you recognize that it's not doing anything for you. Krishnamurti described it as when you recognize the flame burns you, you stop touching it.
And yet we'll continue to run back to that flame over and over and over and be like, no, it's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna hurt this time.
It's
Why is
so
this hurting?
And like knowing that you're doing it and being like, oh no, I don't have to, and I don't actually know, what's best or what's next ever.
Yeah.
Just
It's
keep
crazy how
going.
many people are touching the fire and they don't even realize that they're doing it. It's like everything's happening to me. Ugh. I love it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
it's again, when you recognize it's like, well, at least I'm learning. And that's nice because as you know, like, you meet people of various different ages and whatnot, and they all kind of absorb where you're coming from in a different way. Like, kids will be like, you're cool. Adults will be like, I'm not sure what to do with you. Like, just, and that's good for them too, right? Like, that's kind of the whole point because you're making that impact without even trying, because the world is twisted up in how seriously we take ourselves. The
My
only thing you can do is the opposite, and that means let go of watching for that end result, let go of that need to see the world being saved, because that's just you doing more of the same.
Mm-hmm. 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 Ah, I love
Yeah.
it. I appreciate you both.
Likewise, likewise. I'm
Very.
assuming we're going to see you on the Patreon call after this.
You are assuming correctly.
Excited to see you there. Always a pleasure chatting. Right.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Oh,
See you all
thanks so
later.
much.
Yeah.
See you soon, ladies and gentlemen. Great.
Mm,
And first one on the show.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to get used to this timer thing.
Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
You got the reins of the time.
Bam, bam. I think I figured out the technology and we had to reverse the thing. This is weird for me now.
Mhm.
Do you know why I do that reverse thing?
Uh,
The mirroring?
yeah.
It just makes more sense to me. Like, if I lean this way, it leans with me on the screen, but now it's like the opposite. Like, I'm leaning towards myself. It's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Fucks with my brain,
Well,
Just,
does the timer stay right side or back side?
yeah, that's the thing. When it's mirrored, it shows it backwards.
Does it show it on Restream like that too?
I'm almost certain it does,
Yeah,
but
because I thought it was flipping it back.
I don't think so, because we tried it on yours at one point.
Mm.
That's why I always got you to do the timer on your size, because it reversed it on mine.
Okay, because mine showed up reversed when I would do it.
Right, right. Well, here we go. All right. Who else do we got who's going to call in is the question. We are on a conversation of uncertainty today, which means that if you are feeling uncertain about what to say on the show, possibly the exact right time for you to get onto the show, dualistiCunity.com/live will take you to the form where you can fill it out, and it will bring you to the link that will bring you to our waiting room, which will bring you into the conversation with us, where you can talk about whatever the hell pops up. I love that about our podcast. I really do, because there's always this idea like, oh, I gotta be the smartest in the group in order to have something valuable to say. Like, if I'm gonna be on a podcast, my God, I gotta be an expert. I gotta be famous. I gotta be a creator. I gotta be like, an influencer, all that stuff. And it's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. And you might just have something valuable to say just in the fact that you're living your life. Perhaps that's all that's required, is for you to just bring everything that you've become up until this point here, and then let it be something else, and it really is that, we just don't feel like it's enough, because we think about it. we're like, you know, but yeah, but I don't know anything. Who doesn't know anything? Which you are you looking at? You're looking at the idea that says I don't know anything, because that's all you're seeing at the moment, right? As soon as you hold on to the idea, because that's fucking ridiculous. Like if you think about it, I don't know anything. I don't nothing.
Mhm.
Man, you can talk to a 5-year-old kid. That kid will fucking tell you what they know. You know, the truck is green. You know, you're like, damn. You know, like this is what they've picked up until this point. There's a lot of shit that you know. You know, there's a lot of shit that we all know. You want to come on the show and tell us the truck is green? By all means. You know, but the point being is that, you know, perhaps the best thing that you can do is just accept that you don't have to know. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have this idea of yourself that you're like, now I'm safe. Now I'm secure. Now I'll find happiness. Now my life will be complete, because that whole thing takes you away from the experience you're having right now.
The whole thing. Yeah. Yeah. Because if there is that focus on having some sense of some guarantee, you know, or certainty, which doesn't exist, like moment to moment. We don't know how this call is going to end right now. We don't know. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Get hit by a fucking sun flare
Straight
next
up.
week.
Yep.
And yet I'll project all these things into, you know, throughout the rest of my life, despite having no idea, never really knowing, you know, what I wanted with my life as I was going through things, but maintaining this perspective of, you know, this idea that I could, that it was all just going to be inform this larger want in some way, but never having that larger want so much. And so now it's kind of like, okay, well, if that's the case, then maybe this is exactly what I would want. Like when I think about, you know, living in New York, even, you know, I always knew I wasn't going to live there forever, you know, and I always knew that I was going to keep just living my life too, you know, and just continuing to do that. And like, if that's my priority, then every moment's mine, what I make of it, you know, it's not about living up to any sort of expectation. It's certainly not an expectation of myself, because that is what's always tied me up, is like having some expectation of myself to be something, to maintain some perspective that I'm doing the right thing, the correct thing, you know? And now it's like I recognize the futility in that, and just the straight up lie of it. There is no right way. There's no right way to live. There's no right way to live your life. And so we've built almost this society around this assumption that we can know the right way to live and just have a certain path. And if
You mean it's not Christianity?
believe it or not,
How about democracy?
not
Is that one doing it? Seriously,
exactly.
right? Like that's all we're doing, man. We're just coming up with more. This is it.
Yeah,
This is it. And then we're surprised a generation or two later when it turns to shit,
yeah,
because it's never the structure. It's
No.
never the answer. It's always our ability to be here with
Mm.
sensitivity.
So it's like, how much sensitivity
Yeah.
do we have to hear? You know, how much or how little sensitivity do I have to hear, and the fullness of what's going on,
Word.
you know? And with that, then there isn't so much of a, like, everything is here, you know, in this spot, you know, like having something to say or share or add. It's like there's so much when you're involved in the experience that you're having, instead of you can caught in your head and focused on, you know, trying to find some sense of certainty or guarantee.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, I mean, like I remember our Vancouver retreat.
Mhm.
For example, we were all down by the water, and I noticed some shiny flecks in the
Mhm.
rock, and I'm just like, gotta tell you, always amazed by the fact that human beings managed to get that shit out of a rock and make a spoon out of it. And everybody just stopped and looked at me, and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Metal." Never thought about where metal comes from, you know, like that kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that's the thing, is that I didn't know what to talk about. I saw something shiny. It sparked something that I learned at some point where I was actually not learning about it, but taking it in, where it blew my fucking mind. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, do you ever think about this that I thought about at some point? And everybody's just like, holy fuck. And then they're thinking about it for the first time in their own way. They're not thinking about it like I am.
Yeah.
They're not seeing the same series of events that I'm seeing in my head, right? They're seeing a totally different series of events for how that shit got out of that rock, and what came after and
Yeah.
all that. But it's just like, I couldn't have planned that. Like I could have been, now we're going to go down to the beach. We're going to find a rock that's got something shiny in it, so I can pass this along. God, that sounds stressful.
It does.
Right?
It does.
Instead I'm just like, hey, it's a nice day at the beach. I mean, we could have talked about the water cycle. Like we could have talked about anything. There's something in everything. Every experience that we have is instructive. Every experience we have is informative. But how often are we taking the experience that we're having and then superimposing it with the experience of ourself that we're familiar with?
Yeah, so much of it should go. And so, yeah, because without that, like that assumption, because someone will bring up something random, like talk about something random. And I feel like it's part of me that I can't do that because then I won't be able to explain it or talk about it. And like, so I can't jump into that. But then when I do, it's like I'm relaxed enough for it to be expressed, like whatever's there. And it's almost like there's that, yeah, it's that leap of faith, like of relaxing when you're there that kind of opens up the floodgates. The flow is settling into where you're at, as opposed to, tensing up, trying to get somewhere, trying to be something, trying to
Exactly.
influence the world in the way that you want it to be influenced, instead of being it, instead of being involved in the process of it happening, and having the influence there. But yeah, the the having something to say is where I tend to, I don't know, feel like I settle into, as I prioritize, focus on myself, it's like that's where things feel like they get caught.
Well, how often, like for how long has that been a fear? Right? How long have you entertained that idea of yourself? Like you're looking at a deeply entrenched habit, right? Like deeply entrenched, familiar, an old friend, to some degree, something you reach to when you're in uncertainty.
Yeah.
That's really what all of our shit is. We're just like, like fuck, the alternative is just not knowing, and so we reach back to, self-deprecation. Some people reach back to self-aggrandizement, right? Like building themselves up rather than tearing themselves down. I mean, but we all reach for something. And that's really it. But I find it funny because now you'll hear me talk like at the retreat where I'll go off on some tangent and everybody's like, wow, that was pretty well said. Wow. And I remember periods of my life where I was like super erratic, trying to get all this shit out of my head, and people are like, slow down, breathe. Yeah, breathe. Right. And it's good. We can't understand the fucking word you're saying. And so I went through moments like that where I'm just like, right. Why am I hurrying? Oh, because I need to be heard. Because I'm afraid of not saying it right. Like all these things. And these are all lessons step by step along the way to where I am now. Nobody sees that shit.
Yeah.
What they see is me going through a thought in what they think is a fluid, calm, cohesive way, when in fact it's just me going through the same kind of thing I went through when I was younger, but not panicking as much, not dwelling on the thought, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, not trying to rush ahead, not thinking it means something, not trying to get to an end result. And so instead, I'm just really involved with what I'm saying. That's all. And it's just that. And then if I forget what I'm saying as I'm about to, I just stop talking and I pass it on to someone else. And all of everything I just spoke is gone. Right now.
Yeah.
Gone. Because I said it. Doesn't mean anything about me. Why would I dwell on it? Right? It's already gone. Your turn.
Yeah.
Or you. If you'd like to join us. Dualisticunity.com/live.
Check it out. Yeah. And just like having that, like being in the same spot of uncertainty all the time. It's just, which situations do you feel more comfortable in versus not, is so much of it. Because I'll think that I, reached a point where I'm more, more relaxed. And it was like in certain environments, in certain types of situations, there was that additional relaxation, but that's not all situations, you know, and so certain situations will, yeah, trigger certain, you know, responses to that, and then it's continuing to relax through that, but it's still the same uncertainty no matter where you are. It's always been the same uncertainty in every situation, and it continues to be the case. And so how could there be, you know, a right thing to share or to add or to express if it's always uncertainty, like right now and right now and right, like
Because I don't like the way that feels.
oh my goodness, because then it's like you are bouncing through, and it's like one or the other. It is kind of a trade is, yeah, that sense of uncertainty, just the willingness to recognize that it's always a question mark, and it's always going to be a question mark, and it continues to be a question mark as we go, but there isn't the weight of like the right thing to do or say, or there
No.
being one.
In fact, it gets exciting after a while.
Yeah.
You're like, what's coming next?
Yeah.
You know, because it stops being about you.
Yeah.
This is why I say, like, it's all game. When you really get out of the way, you start to realize like, everything's game. It's all just more and more and more unfolding of yourself. But the reason we fear that is because we keep making it hard on ourselves, and we keep thinking it's going to last forever instead of just recognizing like, no, you're just kind of afraid. You know, like that's all it is. And you don't want to deal with the fact that you're afraid. So you keep trying to solve the little things you're afraid of. Instead of just being willing to accept the fear as an optional response to everything that's happening, you know, an optional response to uncertainty. You can be afraid, or you can just be uncertain, but the uncertainty is going to remain, you know, one way or another. The fear is optional, and often it comes down to that urge for certainty, right? That said, we got somebody in the waiting room. Hell yeah.
Amanda.
Yeah. Question is, what would Amanda like to talk about? We'll check out the form. If there is a form.
Yeah.
There should be a form. There's a form.
Yeah, it's
Uncertainty. Right in
there it is.
right in the name.
Hey,
And
what's up, guys? Welcome to my work break.
Hey. Good to see you as always. So yeah, I saw on the forum you picked out uncertainty. What do you want to chat about? And funnily enough, we were just chatting uncertainty.
I am just jumping on the
conversation.
Incredible.
yeah, I'm just jumping on that bandwagon with you guys. I usually I'll write, let's find out together. You know, that's usually what I fill out on the form because like I'm not sure. And even if I pick something, I'm not even sure we'll touch on that, you know. So but this time I was like, you know what? Let's officially join the uncertain conversation. Because it's an ongoing experience. And so, you know, as much as I have loved planning and loved to come up with concepts and to defend them to the last, you know, to the, you know, almost to the death, to, you know, in certain ways, none of my plans were ever predictions. And I used to treat them like they absolutely were. Like I know what's happening. I know what's going on. I have done the research. I have thought about this thoroughly. I have spoken with experts. Like someone's got to know. You know, that's the impression I keep getting from my environment is that, you know, certainty is possible, but it's not. And as much as we feel like we know, you know, that knowing isn't absolute in the way that we treat it. You know, and so, yes, you do know things. Do you know them with absolute certainty, with no fluctuation, with no new information needed or even possible to be obtained? No, you don't know things to that absolute level because that would also imply that you know everything else because things are always interconnected and things are always influencing each other. So to know one thing with absolute certainty also means that you would need to know everything. And that's just not my goal, you know, and it used to certainly be my goal because I thought that, you know, uncertainty was this like curse, like almost like this burden. And uncertainty, although it is unsatisfying, is not a deal breaker for life. You know, I'm not certain. So give me the gun now, Bill. I'm ending this. Enough is enough. You know, like the uncertainty isn't a fucking deal breaker for me. It wasn't then and it isn't now. And even when I thought that I absolutely knew something, I didn't. And that's never stopped me from being here. That's never stopped me from making the most of being here. And although I can have an opinion that I don't like something, you know, the thing, I guess what I'm appreciating more about being here is that being here in this moment gives me everything that's available to me right now. And with what's available right now, I can create things I imagine, things that are totally unimaginable, things that are expected, things that are unexpected. But I can't make something unless it's here. So if it is here, let's work with it. If it's not here, that's not really my concern because I can't work with it. It's not one of the building blocks that's within reach. And it's not that I can't ever get more materials or I can't get other opportunities or that what's available isn't changing. Of course it is. But if it's not here right the fuck now, I can't really do anything with what's not here right now. So am I going to cry and complain or whine or yearn for what isn't here? Or am I going to make some fucking magic with what is in my available environment right now? Because that's where I actually have an opportunity to do more than just be satisfied or unsatisfied with what is.
Exactly. Well said. Beautifully said. Because yeah, if I'm not making the most of what I'm doing right now, then what am I doing? Like, my life is here. My life is always where I'm at. Like I am that, you know, forefront of reality. It's like, oh, my life doesn't seem super fun. It's like, why do you think that it's going to happen to you? You know, why are you expecting it to happen? Is there something that's going to give you that fun, that hit of happiness? Like, why isn't my life happy? Like, why am I not happy right now? It's like, it's a good question. Like, oh, things should be different than they are. It's like, according to who?
Right?
And so you don't have to necessarily buy into this idea that, you know what's best. Because then it's like that uncertainty becomes exciting. And then it's like, yeah, moment to moment, I don't know necessarily what's playing out or how things are going. And the willingness to just continue to be a question mark about your life, like, allows you to be a question mark. It allows you to, like, continue to live without so much weight or expectation.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, right. I'm not meeting this scale. I'm not measuring up. And then I look closer at the scale and I'm like, shit, me manufacturing. God damn it, I did it again. Made by me manufacturers. Shit, that's me. I manufactured this. God damn it, this ruler. I made another fucking ruler. I made another way to measure myself. And I was just joking, Ray, that I look closer at the ruler, I look closer at the scale, and it says me manufacturing. I'm like, shit, it was me again. Damn it, I made another fucking scale. And it's like, I
Why didn't they put
don't
a measurement in here that says asshole?
yeah. Oh my goodness. It's true though. It's always me telling myself that I am not meeting some expectation. I'm not meeting some standard. And when I look closer at the standard, I sometimes give myself like this hypothetical, and it's like, okay, well, if everybody had the same trait or the same standard, if we all were identical on this standard, it wouldn't matter then. And I mean, like, anywhere. So let's say on the scale of I don't know, like woodworking, like being like crafting and building things. If everybody's on the scale is intermediate, then being intermediate in terms of what you can build with wood doesn't actually become this better or worse thing. And I'm like, okay, so that means being intermediate in and of itself isn't subpar. Because if everybody had the same level of ability or capacity or skill set or whatever the fuck it is, if everybody had the same level on that particular scale, then being at that point in the scale wouldn't be an issue. So why is it an issue now? Well, because I have said that someone having more proficiency is better, or someone having less proficiency is worse. And me being in the middle is just that I'm better than half of the people on the scale and I'm not as good as the other half. But if we were all at the same point, it wouldn't matter where I was on the scale. And so it's like, I'm judging, or I guess like if we're going to give like a different example, it'd be like, I'm judging a round peg on a square scale. I'll always fail. I will always fail because the standard is automatically guaranteeing failure.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm judging my life on a scale of success, and life isn't successful or unsuccessful. Life is just life. Life is just unfolding. It is just, everything is just here. And there's just so much that is in this moment, that is in your life. And it doesn't have to be good or bad. It's just, there's just so much. And my opinions don't change the depth of what's there. It just judges the surface. And if I'm always judging the surface, I'll never appreciate the depth. And it's not that I can't also appreciate the surface. It's just that I don't have to get stuck there.
So, yeah, because like you continue to live your life as you go, and like these things continue to come up and happen and play out, and just, you continue to live and understand that you're doing just fine, and prioritizing, where you're at is vital. But yeah, there isn't, this ability to measure where you're at all, one way or the other, on any spectrum ever, how you're doing, because there is no relative thing,
I will make one.
there's nothing that's actually relative to you besides your own perspective, like what that perspective is on things and how you're doing in life. I'm like, I don't know.
I don't like that though. I don't like that. I don't like not knowing. My brain hates it. Like my brain just doesn't like it, wants to settle, right? Because it's exhausting, right? Especially because if you don't like thinking, like if the only thinking you've ever done is because you had to think to get a job in the future, you don't appreciate the thinking, the process of thinking whatsoever. So your brain's just like, okay, but I only ever have to do this until a test is done. So it's almost like we're looking for tests.
Yeah.
We're getting to like now I'm living. It's like, no, you are the process of learning. Like just get into it a little bit and it won't be so bad. But it's like, no, I only want to learn to get to an endpoint where I don't have to think anymore. And so thinking itself seems arduous. Going through the process of actually processing things seems arduous. It seems hard, difficult. We don't like it. It hurts. It's painful. Oh my God, there's all this stuff I don't want, like, and all of that is just because I just want to get to a point where that's not happening anymore. But when that's not happening anymore, you're kind of, dead from the hair down.
Yeah, life isn't hard. Thinking isn't hard until I make it so. That's the best fucking part about this. It's like there are plenty of times that I thought something, anything, silly things, crazy things, complex things, simple, like it does, and it wasn't an issue, And so I was in the comments before when you guys were doing the live show, and somebody was like, "Look at me, say hello," and I'm just like, "You don't like me," and I was like, why is getting a hello tied to being liked? And he's like, not now, Amanda. I was like, well, why not? Why the fuck? He's like, why not? I was like, I don't know. I don't have a problem with what's going on here. Like, how are you doing, sir? Because it seems like there's a lot of anger behind the why not. Or, are you sure you're having fun? Because I know I am. Because I know what it's like to fucking make these fucking hoops, set them on fire, and then like, okay, go time. Jump through that hoop unscathed. Don't burn the fucking leotard. Get through that hoop, do a roll, and bow for the fucking audience. And I'm like, no, no. I am retiring from the bullshit circus. It's not that I won't visit the circus, but I just don't feel as motivated to perform as I used to.
You're there. Yeah, because you don't have to. You don't have to perform for anyone or anything
No.
at all. You can just live your life. living it like it's such a fascinating realization that you just live your life and just be yourself, and you don't have to have this idea of the right way to do that. Like you can just express yourself as you go through things. You can just live. This can just be, you know, a vehicle in a sense. Like you can, like yourself, as I think about, you know, myself, something like, what am I
Hmm.
thinking about? You know, it's like this character, this imaginary friend, essentially. And if that's not there,
Hmm.
there doesn't have to be so much, you know, concern for how things are going or how I'm doing, you know, with that, within that made up spectrum, just to know something,
Yeah.
you know, like, and making the most of it as you go. Like this is, yeah, it's your reality, like it's my reality. And so of course it's going to be reflective of where I'm at all the
Because
time.
you're not the you you're thinking of.
No.
The observer and the observed are the same, right?
Hmm.
They're one and the same. They're reflecting each other, whether we want to see that or not, or whether we have the clarity to see that or not. That said, though, how are you doing? Do you want to take a little bit longer of a break and shoot the shit with us here, or do you got to get back to work?
I would like to get back to work, and this is a great time to not do that.
Okay, fair enough. Perfect. Well, in that case, why don't you hang around? If anybody'd like to jump in here and shoot the breeze with the three of us, you can do so. dualisticunity.com/live. In the meantime, though, how is it going as a podcaster? Because I know recently that you've started podcasting with us in season 6 of Dualistic Unity, but you also live stream every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern time, and that it's an exercise in jumping in. It's very different than going to work. Where you have a certain role, you have certain things you got to talk about. There's a certain task list. There's a direction. All that stuff. I'm not going to make the same joke about the siren. The point is that with the
They're
podcast.
here for me this time.
Right? Exactly. Thank you for saving me. The point is that with the podcast, you don't really have that. It's not like you're coming to the podcast like today we got to cover this. We're having a board meeting. Somebody take the fucking minutes. Like there's none of that happening, and so it really is just having faith in yourself. And I know a lot of people will listen to you, and even in the comments just now, like, oh man, spitting truth, bam, but from your experience, how has that been?
It has been surprising and uncomfortable and exciting, and it's the full spectrum because every moment has the full spectrum on the table. And so being a podcast, joining you guys has been, you know, different and new. Different and new, but also very familiar and similar because I have been chatting with you guys and with the Patreon group members and with everybody since the beginning. And so it's been a couple of years of just chatting, just shooting the shit, sharing insights, sharing blunders, sharing, jokes that, I'm laughing so hard at that I can't even hear anyone else laughing. Like, so I definitely, like, it's been 2 years of that. And so doing the podcast didn't feel all too different. But I also I have what they call the gift of gab, and I love talking and I love words and I love reading and I love chatting with people, and people feel like books on a bookshelf, and I love sometimes picking up a book and not wanting to put it down and wanting to get to know someone and being so enthusiastic about their presence and their time and just being happy that they exist and that you get to hang out with them. I was like, this is cool, you're dope, this is awesome, and so I have that appreciation for people and life. So it doesn't feel all too different. What does feel different is that, I don't have the same role expectations for myself that I have in work. You know, I don't take it as seriously, but I still do take considerations, right? I don't talk specifically about my employer. I don't talk specifically about people by name. I minimize the times that I talk about certain substances until I can kind of exit stage right. I'm still kind of living two lives. And so if, it feels new, but it feels very familiar for me. You know, I really am enjoying the fact that I'm just sharing a lot more frequently is probably also something that's new, is that I spent a lot of time chatting on the podcast, Patreon calls, but a lot of times I'd be chatting with people about things that they brought up. And with this podcast, I'm actually talking a lot more about like firsthand experiences, things that I'm have gone through, are going through, are in the middle of, you know, so I guess I'm sharing a lot more about my personal experience, because I definitely had a tendency to be very private, but it's just because, you know, I thought that there was nobody better equipped to handle and carry my weight better than me. And there was no one that has been on this journey living as the character as Amanda except me. And there was no one that has that depth of intimacy that I have with myself. And so it just felt like I don't really need to share that with you, because it's not a burden. It's not a problem. I'm embracing it. I like it and don't like it, but that's a part of the package. And so it didn't feel like I really needed to share too much about what I was going through, because it felt like it was just being fully lived and embraced as an individual experience. But now I am sharing so much more about just things that are happening. From my perspective. And so I do feel a little more, I do feel like I'm sharing a lot more than I normally would have if I wasn't a co-host.
That's awesome. And again, I'd like to posit that because although you've always expressed yourself, it's always been, you know, very much within a particular vein. Like you said, you're very upbeat. You like to keep things light. You like to be enthusiastic and all that. But when you're self-reflecting, that's not always the case. Like that, sometimes you go into places in the mind where you're just not feeling fucking chipper. You know, you're not making jokes. You're straight up going through the shit. You know, and in that, in being able to do that on the podcast, I think there's a part of us that starts to recognize we can do that anywhere. You know, that we don't necessarily have to be that person that keeps everybody up and bouncing, you know, that we are allowed to be that other part of ourselves as well, regardless, right? And it's just that at work, that's not the case, right? Like we go to work, they're like, keep your shit at home. You know, it's like, I'm a human being. Like my shit comes with me, you know, like that's the whole thing. But that said, we have Jackie in the queue. We gotta let Jackie in. Holy shit!
Yeah.
All four co-hosts.
Let's go, baby.
And this is going to be great. We're going to have this actually happening in person in 2 weeks, April 11th to April 15th. We're all going to be hanging out in California. If anybody hasn't already bought their
I'm like
tickets,
listening
get
to
in
the
there.
live and it's like a little bit behind. So I'm like, what's up, guys?
Hey,
Just
hey,
hopping
good to see
in.
you.
Good to see you guys. I'm loving the conversation so far. And naturally, since Amanda was talking about her experience as a co-host, I thought I'd drop in. The stars aligned, you know, in such a way. I'm happy to say. I didn't really come in with anything, to be honest with you.
That's perfect. You can weigh in on your thoughts about being a co-host if you'd like.
That's true.
Because the timing was so good.
I did relate to a lot of what Amanda was saying. Like, I have never been this open and vulnerable, and it's kind of terrifying when I think about it, that it's so public and like literally anybody can find it and listen to it. And I'm like, I've talked about situations in my life for sure that if people listen to it, they would know I was talking about them, or like, I don't know. And I just have to not give a fuck about that. It's a daily, or not daily. It's a how do you say 2 times weekly? Twice weekly. Twice weekly
It can be
opportunity.
bi-weekly, but
Yeah,
sometimes
because
that's every 2
bi-weekly is
weeks
every
also.
other week, right?
It can be used for both, so it actually isn't
It's
clear.
super confusing.
Yeah, it's like not helpful at all because it's still a full question mark.
Okay. The words really don't fucking matter at the end of the day. And that's another thing. It's like we're just trying to find words to describe something or an experience that you can't describe. And like words are so dualistic in nature, and our human experience is so like individual and impossible to express in a way that's meaningful to anybody else, because we're all like even though we're having a similar type of experience of being separate, it's like everybody's experience of that, like the memories they have, the people that they encounter, the place that they live, the things that they see, that's all completely individual. Literally every single person has had a completely different life. And that's crazy as fuck to think about because we think ours is so serious. And I think that's why in the past, maybe I've shied away from sharing as openly because I was expecting other people to have the same highest expectations of myself that I have. And so I was literally holding myself back. And it's becoming more and more clear how absolutely pointless and hilarious that is because like it's just impossible to know how you're perceived, how you're doing, what the fuck is even going on. We we don't know like at all. And I just think about how I don't know how I grow my bones or like digest my food or even I don't know if I'm fully in control of the things that come out of my mouth. Like they just are kind of there. And it's like, okay, well, more so I'm just along for the ride and
I am the ride.
I am the ride, experiencing itself as the rider.
Yeah.
So weird.
Yeah.
God.
Oh man. Yeah. Like that was a conversation we had a good hour ago. Like that sense of not knowing and everything being a question mark. Like as you go through your life, like everything can consistently being that question mark and not necessarily knowing where things are going or what's happening or what's going on, but that feeling of like not having so much to grasp for. And then when you're involved in a situation, like all those sensations of things or thoughts about, you know, what informs me can come up and almost like close off my ability to continue to experience things. And so it's, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you guys sharing your experience of being a co-host on here because yeah, I'm in the same exact boat with sharing things and sharing my experience and what I'm going through in my own life. And yeah, it's been a lot of shifts, a lot of changes. Like I absolutely had certain perspectives of myself that I maintained in order to buoy myself from myself and just express myself. But it's still like creates these expectations all the time. Like no matter what, if you're thinking about yourself, you're setting a bar and then you have to start living up to that and have to continue to try and live up to that. But if there isn't so much of all of those things informing that perspective, you know, then there isn't so much that's in the way of what I'm experiencing. And even, you know, as the words start to slow down and settle down, it's like, I don't know where this is going at all, ever.
Yeah, that's nice. I often forget where it came from. It's like not only do I not know where I'm going now, I don't even remember where I started. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because again, like what's the point? I'm not doing a presentation here. You know, could you imagine we're 460 episodes or something like that in like, you know, this whole thing, part 462. Take notes, people. You know, like it's just like, oh my God. You imagine it's just we're just spending time. You know, that's what we're doing. And we're talking about why we feel compelled to feel like we should be doing something at all. You know, can you imagine like every time you get together with people, you're like, all right, gotta bring up my best game here. It's like, oh my fucking God. Like, just let people see who you are. We never do that though, because we don't think it's enough. Why? Because we keep thinking about it. Like it's actually tied together. Like all of our doubt about how we're going to do in a situation comes back to us thinking about it to begin with. You know, if you just went into the situation, it would just play out. Like that's the funniest fucking thing. And we do it to ourselves. Why? Because we want to feel like we know it's going to happen. It's the only reason because we think that somehow that's going to make it better. It's like, no, because then you're gonna imagine it. I know what's gonna happen. It's like that conversation's gonna suck now because you know where it's going. Like, why would you even listen? Like, that's so fucking point. You'd be in the conversation. It's like, I don't need to pay attention to you at all. I know where we're going. You know, it'd be shitty as a feeling, as an experience for the other person involved. Like, you don't know where it's going. You don't have to know where it's going. You don't even know what's best. You know, I fucking love that. Like, I love the fact that at one point I was so very determined to like be a certain type of business person. I was going to be an entrepreneur. I was going to do all this. And then all of a sudden I started to realize like, this fucking sucks. You know, it was just super stressful because of everything I was trying to be, but none of it was me. You know, I'd go and meet new clients. I'd have to dress up, you know, do that whole thing, talk in a certain way. I'd be checking my hair, you know, like doing that, like all of it was in there. And the whole time I'm thinking like what I really want is for people to see me this way when I'm not comfortable while I'm this way. Like it's just so fucking stupid. You know, at the end of the day, and it's like what I really want is to not feel like this. You know, what I really want is to not have to feel like I need to jump through hoops to get somewhere where somehow I'm more. You know, and what's odd is the only way to get there is to stop wanting it. You know, so once again, making it fucking hard on myself.
Yeah. And yeah, just like the desire that you're not gonna have to jump through hoops, you know, or the recognition that you don't have to, and all these things that are pulling you in different directions, you know, expectations. It's huge. And this idea that like there's any outside of my own that I'd ever have to live up to. You know, like no one has that sense of certainty, you know, of anything, you know, the right way. It's like my choice to do the thing that I'm doing. It's like who's to say that's not the right way, the wrong way, you know? It's like
Yeah. The more that you just like allow yourself to make decisions, I feel like is the only thing that really matters. But you're making a decision to not make a decision anyway. And so like you can kind of just show up, and however a situation unfolds is perfectly fine. And I see that in the podcast. It's like a beautiful example of just like existence and like the symbols and the patterns that like permeate it. And it's funny, like some days I'll show up and I feel like my presence and like rewatching them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so like light this day. And then there are other days where I can tell where I'm in my way, and like maybe I am holding on to something, I'm emotionally not feeling good, or you know, just going through different cycles. And all of those episodes are equally valuable. And like I can't say with certainty by any means, even if I like transcribe the whole episode and like do analysis on it and like try to figure out what the main theme or takeaway would be, usually it boils down to there isn't one, you know, and just we're wandering about talking about it because what else are we going to do? And why not just record it? And yeah, I think it's becoming more and more clear to me that this is just gonna be what it is, you know, and I don't have to try and shape it in any sort of way. And yeah, it's fucking dope that we've created this thing. And like we're like, oh, we can just make it easy on ourselves by not trying to control it? No fucking way. But yes way.
You know, it's kind of funny. I wanted to throw in quickly that because of course we take the transcripts from all the episodes now and we feed them to ChatGPT and we ask it summarize that shit for us, and it's always like, you know, the importance of letting go, the practicality of embracing change. Like it's always just about being yourself over and over and over. Almost every description, although it's different, it comes from a different angle, but it always points to the same shit. Just show up. You know, and what's funny is like you don't even have to show up. You are existence. Like you you were existence. Like that's it. There's nothing to show up for. Like you're what you're showing up to. So you didn't actually go anywhere. And it's just the funniest thing. Like it's like, well, what do I do? It's like whatever. Like you're gonna keep living. And it's just that you look at it as choices, but it's just the continuation of living. You're like, well, yeah, but if I don't think about this, you're still gonna make a choice. Right? It's just that you want to take ownership for that choice, so you're thinking about yourself. Right? I'm choosing. It's like, no, you're just going in another direction. You know, you're just flowing based on all the shit that's come up before now. You're just like, that way. You know, because that's life. Life is a continuation of change. You know, we just look at it as choice, which is a really nice thing about having that illusion of me. And not because otherwise we'd just be doing all this shit together and none of us would feel like we're doing anything. Right? So it's nice to be able to have the illusion of division. It makes it possible for us to have these individual stories. Like we're disconnected. It's not just one fucking organism, you know? It's like each cell of my body is like, I really made it to the heart through working hard, you know? And it's like, yeah, and no.
Yeah, it's like it was playing out anyway. And like that just, I always think about epiphenomenalism when it comes to those things. Like it's already playing out. It's like you don't have to get in there and try and take control of how it plays out. Like you can just be it and then show up and see what happens, and being able to, you know, just have a spot on here where we can just be that expression of whatever's going on, whatever's playing out. It's like that's cool. That's really cool. It's like it feels like stumbling upon a situation where, oh, I can just express myself and I don't have to judge that necessarily. And if I'm not getting in the way, judging period, then things have a more seamless way of playing out. It's like, holy shit, because I'm just talking to myself. Like I've always just been talking to myself, assuming that someone else is going to hear it in the way that I'm saying it. But that's all just within me. Like I don't know how anything I say is going to necessarily resonate. And if I'm just talking from where I'm at and someone else is being themselves or thinking about themselves, like it's going to seem more like they're talking to that person, or that I'm talking to that person because I'm talking to myself. But again, it's like it's going to fall in different situations based on where, you know, someone else is at, or where I perceive them to be at. But yeah.
Amanda, would you like to jump in here?
I I was, you know, waiting for my opportunity when Andrew was like, you know, I felt him like slowing down speech, and I was like, I had unmuted myself like 10 seconds before. I was like, wait a second, no need to rush. Let the man speak, you know? So I muted myself. And so this whole dialogue is always happening in my head. And I fucking love it, man. I love being a narrator. When we were at the retreat and I really leaned into being a narrator when we were playing pool, and I was like, the battlefield is set. Two kingdoms rise, who shall prevail? And so I super leaned into being like this narrator, like narrating these epic battles of and we're just playing pool, and no one's remembering if they're solids or stripes, and I'm still like, and then like the music was like, it was just like this epic music in the background, and then as the music changed, it'd be like Asian, and so I would change it, and then I would use certain terminology that would, like, you know, the young warrior sets his sights, you know, and so I would change it like depending on like the theme of the music, and it was just because why not? You know, and you know, I do have a tendency to be a little lighter, but it's not because, or at least the biggest motivator for that is not my perception from you guys, from everyone. It's the fact that I almost I don't want to shortchange myself anymore. You know, like having a one person pity party just doesn't feel as fun attending anymore. You know, like being upset about not getting my way. It's like, yeah, but what is my way? Like, what is this way that I think is so perfect and so certain, and it needs to happen this way, but yet it didn't happen this way. So like, great job, Einstein. Like, you thought this brilliant fucking thing and it didn't happen, but it was supposed to happen. So maybe my concept isn't as brilliant as I thought it was. You know, maybe it's not all that there is, you know. And so it's more so it feels less about like choosing to be positive and just what seems to be what's left over when I'm not throwing a pity party. And that's what it feels like from my side. It doesn't feel like I'm choosing to be more positive. It just feels like I'm not making a sport out of fucking kicking my ass as much as I used to, and showing, look at first place self-ass kicker right there. Number one in the globe. I am an Olympic level self-ass kicker. Look at my fucking badge. You know, like I just don't feel as tied to that anymore, because the price seemed to be going up. And I just don't feel like paying that price to be self-righteous as much as I used to, and less about being positive for other people. It's just like, it's just not worth holding on to my weight. I just put that shit down and busted a move, because I am the music, motherfucker. Like, let's jam.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah. And being able to just be the music for yourself too. It's like, you know, you feel like you're not having a good time doing something. It's like, why? Why? Where's that coming from? You expecting someone else to do it for you? You expecting someone else to, you know, make it fun for you? It's like, where's that coming from? You know, like, sounds like a lot of need, sounds like a lot of expectation, you know, for someone else to do it for you, for sure. And it's like, no one can do it for you. You know, no one can let go for you. No one can live your life for you at all, like, ever. And it's just you. And like, is your experience of yourself not enough? Is my experience of myself not enough? It's like, that's a full experience.
But what if I'm trying to live like them?
Then it'll be a little bit more, but only if I live the right way. That way that everyone else is.
Right? Because I'm just seeing the assumption.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing the superficial.
Mhm.
Like, I gotta live like him. He does these things. He makes these choices. He talks like this. Therefore, I'll be like him. It's like, no, that's not how that works. This is why I keep saying, like, all of your tools are very personal, you know, and they should be. You know, this is why I'm not a fan of spirituality, is because they give you an idea, you know, like your 7 chakras. It's like, at some point, that was super useful to somebody who was trying to get familiar with their points of focus in their body. Are there 7 chakras? No. You know, it doesn't, you could add 7 more if you'd like to subdivide that shit up a bit more. You could break them down to 3. You know, you can do that, all that, because they're just representative of the spectrum of your experience, right? From the root to the crown, right? From the most biological to the most cerebral. That's all those are meant to be, are symbolic. Different cultures have different symbolism of that, right? So there's no actual chakras, but what they've done is they've fucked you, because now you're like, is it my throat chakra? Is it my sacrum? Like, and it's just like, what do you think it is? Like, what is it to you? You know? And so you're reading through all these books, like maybe it's this, oh, I'm not expressing myself enough. It's like, you could have just spent an afternoon in self-reflection. Like, you didn't have to go looking for these concepts, but it's just because they should be yours. They should be your tools. You know, that's why, like, for me, it was, you know, relax, pay attention, be yourself. Like those are my tools, because I recognized, I'm like, oh my God, they're the same thing. Like that's exactly what it was. They were the same thing. Relaxing, paying attention, and being myself are all the same thing. And so if, depending on where I am, depending on the experience that I'm having, one of those is easier to resonate with. And it leads me to the other 2. Right. And so that's where that made sense to me. Did I read that in a book? No, it's just through going through it. Like, going through it enough, I'm like, okay, relax. Fuck, that's not working. That's not working. You know, because that's it. Sometimes relax does not work, right? You're just like, I need to relax. I don't even know what the fuck that means. Fuck. You know, and so it's like, pay attention. Get your preferences out of the way. Just pay attention to what's happening. Before you know it, because your preferences are out of the way, you start to relax. Right? Which means you start to be yourself a little bit more. You know, it's just like, they're all doorways that go into the same fucking room. Right? But what are your doorways? The experiences that you've had. What have you noticed about their commonalities? Because it's not that, like, those are the only 3. You know, like, we're always using words and things to describe the same experience. You know, so find your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that that you brought up, Ray, the like how absurd it is to try and be like anybody else. Or because I'm guilty. I'm like, oh, the
Yeah.
way people post on social media, I'm like, oh, well, I could be like that. Or it's like there's millions of ways and people and things that you can compare yourself to and try and contort yourself into something that you think is valuable. Because that's really all you're trying to do is feel okay about yourself. But I think that relaxation and that ability to just accept whatever the fuck you are and what's happening is just realizing that you're not just you. Like you are and you aren't. Like we're always going to have the perception of being separate, but the way to like sink into the realization of unity is not to try and live from the perspective of everything at the same time. Like that's when you get people that are like, there's no me. Like,
Exactly.
what do you mean? Like,
And who's saying it?
yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, that's taking it too far. And that's like when the spiritual ego comes in. And that's when you're trying to check all these boxes of like, oh, I shouldn't have preferences. I shouldn't have expectations. I need to just detach fully from everything so then I can't get hurt. And that's what that's about, is like resisting the pain and discomfort of having the perception of division. Because it does make you feel vulnerable. And like you can only see things through your own perception, your own eyes. And you literally can never know how like how things are actually playing out. And so it's almost more in line with unity to just like sink into the experience of division. Because it's like division is unity, since
Straight up.
like two like opposite ends of the spectrum are necessary for each other to exist, right? And so it's just sort of that is unity in and of itself. And so like we can not embrace, but like relax into the experience of division and whatever we're processing in terms of like our self-judgment and getting in our way, is kind of already working itself out, and it doesn't have to look any certain way. And you can just kind of let it happen. And Andrew, I love that you brought up epiphenomenalism too, because that's what I was thinking. I was like, we don't even fucking know if we have free will. But does it really matter anyway if you actually do? Because you still are going to have the experience of having free will. So you can like make decisions, but take it lightly at the same time, because you really don't know if you're making the decision or if the decision is happening and you're just experiencing it
Gosh.
as if you have any sort of control over it.
Couldn't happen without me. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that funny? I love what you were saying there. It's like, I am the observer to the observed. So observe. Like, it's really just observe. Stop interfering. Stop getting in there and going, I gotta get because you're part of the observed. Not fun. You're observing yourself. Right? So just do that. But we're so quick to fucking jump the gun to have a knee-jerk response rather than just pay attention. Relax, pay attention, let that shit unfold. Yeah, that was well said, Jackie. That was really fun.
Sure. And yeah, as you keep paying attention, like so much of those more considerations start to come into play too. And there's almost like, making choices. There's just things that make more sense and things that don't make as much sense. And that's kind of where you tend to almost get to, because then it's just being more responsible, for yourself. But like as that shifts, it's like, all right, if I am here now, then I can be responsible for this. But it's not the idea of all of this. It's just taking everything in and continuing on as you go. And there's almost a degree of self-honesty that you start looking at, and you're like, it informs things very clearly, you know, when you're being yourself and when you're genuinely, authentically expressing, you know, where you're at and what you're dealing with and what you're going through. So it's fascinating.
Well, I think it's interesting that authenticity is the same as bringing all of your experiences with you.
Yeah.
Like instead of cherry picking what you're going to say down to what you're comfortable with, you're actually using all of what you are. You're just expressing it without second thought. And so there's just more information in there. Like you might not realize it, but there's more in terms of how you stand, how you talk, your mannerisms, all that stuff, because you're being yourself.
Mhm.
The other person may not even realize how much more they're taking in, but they are.
Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty cool. Hey, I wanted to mention very quickly to both of you, kind of a cool thing happened today. We mentioned it briefly on Dualistic Unity Social. We were out buying weed, and all of a sudden we come out of the dispenser and somebody's like, "Ray and Andrew in my town." So that was really cool and kind of weird.
It was
Yeah.
trippy. It was really trippy. Like, is she talking to us? Where'd that come from? Am I hearing myself?
She was pretty specific though.
Yeah, big fan. Yeah, she took a selfie with us.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It was really cool. Yeah.
That's
It's like,
insane.
whoa. That didn't even happen that didn't happen in New York for me for a while. And then I'm in Nanaimo and here we are.
And I'm
Andrew
like
and Ray.
super discreet about my life, like so nobody ever notices me. So yeah, that was really cool. We told her about karaoke on Friday nights and Saturdays down at the local pub, the Quarterway Pub, for anybody's listening. Set Friday and Saturday nights. Definitely check that shit out because they're dope.
They are really dope.
Mhm.
Beef taco poutine, man, that fucking so good.
The Bowen burger, man, that thing. And now that I have unlocked the Thai chili sauce level, I'm going to change their menu. They don't know it yet, but I'm going to be a new employee and I will be working and coming up with food ideas, brainstorming with with people. It's like, did you guys try this? And if you have any sauce ideas, let me know. It's a two-way street. There's creative cooking, that
Jackie, we're
that
gonna
we're
have to
doing.
get you up here, man. We'll all have one big sleepover.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes, so necessary. I've been dying to see Vancouver Island. Yeah, and hopefully we can have another retreat there in the
We're
near
hoping for
future.
November.
Oh,
Right
definitely.
now, we
Oh,
are
fuck
focused on
yeah.
our Colorado retreat. That would be the next one. We've only got 2 tickets left for California, so we may not end up filling those, which is fine. But anybody who would like to come to Colorado, this is the time to get that
Mhm.
ticket, because as we get closer to the event, those tickets are going to sell out fast. This is our most 420 friendly event.
Mhm.
Like, I mean that.
Education.
Our most 420 friendly. And the reason I say that is because we can smoke inside. We can smoke inside. They provide bongs that have been sterilized, grinders, papers, movie theater, foosball, ping pong. No, not ping pong. Foosball, Pac-Man,
Mhm.
air hockey, the hot tub, pool. It's cool. There's even a popcorn machine downstairs, for fuck's sakes. Like it's a really cool experience. And we're gonna be doing hot knives. Hot knives! Yay! Last time I was there, it's funny, I turned the corner into the kitchen. Andrew and I had just gotten into the place, and I saw the old stove, and I literally did like a little fucking happy dance. I don't think I've ever seen Andrew look so disturbed and curious at the same time up until that moment. It was just like, what the fuck are you so happy? But like you could see him, he's just like, what just happened? Did you win some money? Like it was
Most
just
excited I've seen anyone. In
oh my God. Like I can't even communicate. It was like, yeah. Like, it was almost orgasmic,
You jump for joy?
I really did.
Literally.
And almost immediately regretted it because the floors were super slick, right? But yeah, it's gonna be a dope
having that carpet on that floor.
dope time. And we're allowing people to bring guests. So there's a
Yes.
bunch of king beds that are private rooms. If you would like to bring a guest, you can do so, which is really cool. But make sure they listen to the podcast. Don't bring people who don't listen to the podcast because they're likely not going to enjoy it. They might think they're going to enjoy it. They might be like, no, I'm super open-minded. I love that kind of blah. Don't believe them. Don't believe them. Put them through season 1 before you even consider bringing them. So says I.
Yeah, that would be pretty fucking jarring to show up to the D retreat never having listened to the podcast.
Yeah.
I'd I would be deeply, deeply uncomfortable. There's something to be said for baby steps, gotta say.
Yeah, that's a setup and a half, just to set your friend up. Like they have no idea what they're walking into. And it's just like, is this an intervention? It's like, it's not supposed to be. But I understand the feeling, why you feel like we're all here, attacking your identity. It's like, it's not. It's just that we're not, no one. So one thing I love about the retreats is that no one tends to know the habits, triggers, or the coping mechanisms of other people. So there's no way for anyone else, or it's very hard for someone else to maintain your story with you.
Yep.
So when you go to these retreats, like you are on your own. If you are trying to maintain your story, maintain your identity, if you're trying to hold on to a story, you'll be the only one holding on to your story in particular, because you'll have none of your friends, family, normal coping mechanisms, none of your normal environment there to support the script that you might bring with you. So it's like, be ready to be a one-man show if you're not ready to let go of the show, so
Nice. That's
Yeah,
well
it'll
said.
become sorry.
No, go ahead.
It'll become glaringly obvious what you're holding on to, and it might be difficult to accept that sometimes. And still, even sometimes I realize things about myself that are like difficult to take in, or it's like just a perspective I've never been open to before. And it doesn't feel good, but also in allowing that to be and be like, yeah, that's on the table. I could be perceived in this way. Matt maybe have acted in this way. Yeah. Um, it's like I'm a little bit more free. I don't have to judge myself as hard. And I take the idea of myself just a little bit less seriously, because it's more, rather than it being this like tiny thing that I felt was certain, it's so all over the place now, like the ways that I can think about myself. So I'm like, really, I don't fucking know what I'm like at all. But yeah, I'm fucking stoked to see you guys and hang out at the retreat in like a couple weeks.
ow, ow.
2 weeks? Like that's insane. We have all the goods and we are all set to go. So it's gonna be a fucking blast. And
Karaoke.
yeah, not that I'm like looking for any sort of perspective, but it's almost like I feel like I've been caught up in shit. And
Nice to have that space.
yeah, it's nice to have space to like get out of my normal environment and reflect and also just have fun and relax for a little bit. And usually after that, I just feel more myself, just embracing it with other people that are doing the same. And yeah, I can't wait to see what the retreat turns out to be.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to know that like you can relax and still be self-reflecting. Like you can have fun and still be processing things. And I think is that we kind of fall into this habit of thinking like, if it's not arduous, if I don't feel like a bag of shit, I'm not actually growing, And so we almost deliberately make it subconsciously hard on ourselves just to feel like we're actually getting somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've I've done that for a while. Assuming that my narrative is any different or deeper than anyone else's, or should be, maintain it. And like all the retreats have chipped away at that, because I've always been left with just myself, what I am, and that's not the story, that's not the idea that I hold on to at all. And like each and every retreat, I wasn't even realizing necessarily that it was, that process of letting go of my perspective, my idea of the right thing to be happening, what I, how I want to look at myself. Because I created this story that was like, allowed me to look at myself in a certain way. It wasn't me. It's never me. I've never been looking at myself via some idea, some perspective, some thought. It's never been a thought. I've never been a thought. So yeah, if you are trying to maintain, some perspective at one of the retreats, like it can certainly feel like you're going through something despite your surroundings being absolutely incredible and glorious. And like I'll admit I've done that throughout lots of periods, just trying to maintain the perspective of myself.
Yep.
Having some sense of control of what that is and how it's seen, how I'm seen, how I'm viewed. And yeah, you continue to go through things, you continue to prioritize yourself and living your life, and you start to get a sense for what that even means. And there's you start to realize where there are expectations to live in a certain way, and certain attachments to certain perspectives, and perspectives that aren't mine. My perspective is mine, where I want to be, and what I want to say and express. Like, it all goes hand in hand with just being myself right now. And yeah, it's it's fascinating. Just
Right. Prioritizing it, if I maybe it's starting to feel more like you're prioritizing life over my life. Like, my life sounds like I can control it. When I say life, like in a general sense, like it's very hard for me to even in my own brain say like, oh, I can control life, and my brain's like, yeah, good fucking luck. But when I say my life, it's like, well, that sounds more manageable. I feel like we might be able to control that. We might be able to control my life, And so I'm noticing myself have a tendency to prioritize just life, living life, being life over trying to control my best life.
I like that. That's well said.
Yeah, just try to fucking live it fully. And that kind of almost doesn't make sense because your experience is always equally as full. But I think we distract ourselves with the mental chatter. And like the more that you believe that voice, the louder it gets and the more convincing it becomes, right? But when you stop giving it really any authority, because it's never going to figure out an answer, and it's mostly spewing bullshit, then when those things come up that maybe you hadn't realized you were holding on to, it's not that you beat yourself up for it. It's like you allow it to pass by. The only reason that your shit is scary is because you think it means something about you, about your progress or your worth, or I don't know how free you are at this moment. None of it means jack shit. So like you can be dealing with shit, but in a relaxed way of like, yeah, that's there. There's nothing wrong with it, and it doesn't mean anything about me. And so I'll do whatever I need to do. Maybe I need to cry. Maybe I need to scream. Maybe I need to just sit in melancholy, or
Yeah.
I don't know. However, I want to process it. Maybe I don't need to do anything different at all, and it's already changing. So yeah, you can just show up, and it's so fucking crazy to have the perspective I have now of like, yeah, just whatever the fuck happens, it's all good. Like, it's not that it's all good, it's just okay. And not trying to, it's just so crazy how convincing my like concepts of myself and the world really are, or they were. And now like everything is a lot more clear because I'm not trying to figure it out anymore. And then it's like, yeah, things just are going to be what they're going to be. You are going to be what you're going to be. And there's nothing to compare that to. Like we were talking about earlier, because where's the bar? Like you're the one that's creating it. Nobody else. There's no like real standard that means literally anything, like about your worth or how much you enjoy your life or how much you're, I don't know, like how you're doing better than other people. Like there's nothing. And you're just left with yourself and just whatever is. And that's already enough. And then you could do like Amanda was saying and just prioritize living. It's like, wow, it really can all be so simple. And why am I so fucking hard on myself? Oh, Jesus. Like, oh my God. It's crazy.
As
Nothing.
somebody 20 years older than you, I'm so fucking excited for you, man. Like I'm so excited for there's so much of the rest of your life left, and there's gonna be so much less weight because you're learning this now. You know, it's encouraging for all of you. Every single one of you, Amanda included. Like all of you. It's so very cool to me because I know how much this has changed my life. I know the stark difference between before and after I started to get this. So I'm just stoked to be a part of all of this with all of you. I'm excited that you've all created Dualistic Unity, and it's something that I get to be a part of, and it's just so very appropriate to all of our journeys, and that includes everybody that's listening right now. It's appropriate to your journey. You take credit for that shit because you are absolutely part of why this is happening.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. And yeah, it's fascinating those roles, that we take in and think we have to live up to, as we go through this, just being ourselves. And you start to get a sense for how much, you were informed by your environment as you start to more and more authentically just express yourself and not judge yourself as you go. You start to realize like, oh, where do all those considerations, the fear of judgment come from? And it comes from certain places you start to realize. And then as you look at those, it's like, oh, but I don't have to live up to that. I don't have to live up to that or that perspective or that perspective. Like old friends, family, parents, like the role of parents, even as being, that was the first thing I looked to for there being a right way to act, a right way to be. And I'm just starting to realize more and more, like talking about experiences, like I'm just now living my life and making decisions and taking more in and taking more considerations in as I go. And, looking to someone else as soon as I think there's someone to tell me the right thing to do, like to give me advice in the sense of there being an answer. It's like I'm not actually expressing myself authentically, whatever that is right now. It's not, and if it's not based on this role, this narrative, this story that I've always, relied upon, it's like, oh, I'm going to choose how to act based on how to maintain this story. It's like if I don't have to do that, then everything's on the table and I don't have to judge myself as I go, because if it is relative to this story, then that's the bar. It's like the existence of this story to this point is my bar to maintain that perspective, and it's just to maintain that degree of certainty, like to take that question mark that I'm always sitting in and have some certainty and be able to measure, what I'm expressing as I go as being something. But if I don't have that certainty, if I know that I can't, no matter what, as I go through things, and there can't be adequate judgment as I go through it, and afterwards I can't actually know how it went, then all I got is where I'm at, and I don't know how it's going at all either. And so you just take in all the considerations that you can and then just make choices. And it's like the question of whether I'm making the choice or not comes in, because it's like, what do I mean by me after factoring in everything? Like it's still me making it for sure, but it's just with more considerations.
This has been a fun call-in show. totally didn't expect it to be a 4-person co-hosted episode, so that's fucking dope. That said, we have a Patreon only episode that we recorded about a week and a half ago that has not been released yet. That's going to be coming up in the near future. We're going to be joining Patreon Tier 2 call right after this. We would love to see all of you there. Jackie, Amanda, thank you for being everything that you are, and including joining us here on the episode. It means a lot to us. Thank you.
Appreciate
Yeah, I
it.
don't know how I ended up here, so. And I mean, I don't know how any of this fucking happened, but
You and me
stoked
both.
to be here regardless. Yeah, this was fun.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely always a blast chatting with you guys. And I'm excited to be here. I don't know where we're going and I don't need to know.
Well, at the moment, I'm going to go outside and smoke a joint, and then I'll see you on Patreon. But everyone, join us in California if you can. There's 2 spots left. You can hang with all 4 of us. It's going to be dope. We'll
Ow,
see you
ow.
soon.
Thanks, guys.
Bye,